Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Fan Racing channel. I am your host, GordoGambles. Welcome back to the first NASCAR Cup Series DFS preview of the 2023 season. I'm excited to get into this. We got ourselves the Busch Clash this weekend, and we got ourselves a nice little panel to get going this weekend, and I'm very, very happy to be joined by three beautiful people to break this down. As you guys all know, I'm not the brains of this operation. I'm just the look. So let's get these brains going in here right now. Let's get her started. And before we do, we got one new face with us this week. We have Andrew from Fast Cars, Fast Money. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited for NASCAR DFS to finally get kickstarted this weekend with the Busch Clash, and really just appreciate the invite to hop on the show and talk some NASCAR. There's nothing else I'd rather do.
I am so happy to have you here joining us. More eyes and brains on the operation here, and I'm looking forward to hearing your takes on this slate here and everybody else's as well. As always, joined by Ryan and Jason. Jason, will pass it to you first. Thank you for not wearing that Bengals gear one more week in a row, but happy to see you.
Hey, Gordo, what's going on? Yeah, excited about the weekend, man. NASCAR season starts. We got DFS back, NASCAR back. You know what? The lakes are starting to freeze up here. I'm going to have some safe ice. Going to get out to some ice fishing tomorrow, Saturday. NASCAR on Sunday. By the end of the weekend, hopefully I'll have fish in the freezer, green screens, and DFS. Be a great weekend. Can't wait.
Well, like I said, guys, I'm just the host. I don't know much about racing, but I'll tell you this right now: if you guys were racing on the Canadian streets right now, it would not be fun. It's very, very icy. But Ryan, how you doing, my friend?
I am good, Gordo. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. You know what's doing even better? The nice people commenting in our chats. What's up to everybody in the chat? Feel free to ask any questions you may have below. Say, hey, what's up to us? And let's get in talking into some races, man. Let's get talking into it. Ryan, as the you know what, the entire the head of this channel here, is there anything you want to add about this beautiful slate we have this weekend?
I'm excited for it. So last year I actually took the slate off because it's such it was such an unknown. It was the first race with the next gen car. It was the first ever race at the Coliseum. It was just too much of an unknown for me. And at the time, you know, I was also looking for a race to just sit back and enjoy, right? Sometimes when you play DFS, you get so caught up in your lineups and things that I actually just sat back and watched it last year and learned a lot. And this year, I'm really excited for it. We saw pretty consistent races on short flat tracks last year, which this one's even an extreme example of short flat track. But this style of racing was pretty consistent throughout the year. We should have a good handle on it. So I'm looking forward to attacking this race this weekend. I think it'll be a fun one.
I think it should be indeed. And before we jump into the fun stuff, the content here, make sure to guys to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love to the Daily Fan Racing, both channel and website. It is all linked down below. But let's talk about some races here. Let's get started on the 2023 season. Let's start with this weekend here. We have ourselves a fun little race ahead, and we have ourselves a new format here. Let's throw this over to you, Andrew. Talk about the format of this weekend. What's going on Saturday? What's going on Sunday? What's going on here for a fun weekend of DFS and betting action?
Yeah, so this weekend's a little bit unique. You know, if you're new to NASCAR, this isn't normally the format that we follow. If you've been following NASCAR for quite some time, you'll recognize that this isn't a normal format either. And we'll talk a little bit later about how it kind of impacts, you know, DFS purposes and how we really want to attack the slate format-wise. But we got Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday is practice and qualifying, and it's qualifying for the heat races. You got to keep that in mind as well. So we'll arrive on Saturday. We got 3 groups of practice, or all 36 cars, I believe, are going to show up. We're going to split those groups up into 3 different sessions. We're going to go out, have a time session. It's really just, you know, time to get out on track, kind of see where you're at with your car, unload, kind of figure out what adjustments you might have to make. And then later on in the evening, on Saturday, we got single car qualifying, and that single car qualifying is going to determine the starting lineup for the heat races that we have on Sunday. So Saturday, we're going to get a bunch of DFS data that we can dive in and look into, which is going to help us when it comes to building some lineups on Sunday. So then once we get to Sunday, Sunday is more of the competition day. We got 4 heat races prior to the main event Sunday night. Those heat races are 4 25-lap heat races. And the top 5 finishers from each heat race are going to advance into the main event on Sunday night. And another thing to keep in mind, too, if you win your heat race, you are guaranteed one of the top 4 starting spots for Sunday night as well. So if you get first place in heat race number 1, you're starting on the pole. You get first place in heat race number 2, you're starting on the outside pole, so on and so forth. And then we have 2 last chance qualifiers for those who did not finish in the top 5 of their heat. They have one more opportunity to race their way into the main show. Those ones are 50 lap events, so a little bit longer than the heat races, where the top 3 finishers of each of those races will advance to their position. And then last but not least, we do have a points provisional. So there will be one lucky driver who does not qualify based off of racing their way in, but luckily enough for them, they've accumulated enough points over the course of the 2022 season. And then we'll have 27 cars locked and loaded for the main slate on Sunday. But one thing to keep in mind for DFS purposes, and I'm sure we'll dive into it, there's really only about an hour between the last chance qualifier and the heat race on Sunday. So, we aren't going to know that official grid until very late in the evening on Sunday, and you're really only going to have an hour or so to know what the full official lineup is before putting together your hopefully winning lineup.
All right. Okay. Good stuff there. And you know what, man, this is a brand new season. You'd already talked about a few new things that we're going to be featuring in this first event of the year, but I'm going to ask this one to Jason here. How does this 2023 start to the season compared to the last one? And how did the last one in 2022 go down?
Well, I think the big difference this year is we have a whole year of these guys with experience in these cars. Last year, it was like Ryan said, it was big unknown. You didn't know how these cars were going to perform. So this year we have a lot of trackers, so we kind of know who was good on short flat tracks last year. We kind of know which organization is going to be good. We're going to know what to expect, how these cars race. We get to see some progress and some teams get better last year. So I think we have a lot more advantage, and we've seen short flat tracks be more predictable types of tracks last year. So I think it makes it more easier, I feel like, from a DFS standpoint, especially considering the fact we get to see these cars on the track an awful lot. We get to see practice. We get to see heat races. So we're going to get to see who's the cars that are the best, right? Get to see who the cars get out front. Get to see who the guys are going to start up front. We see short flat tracks. The guys who start up front are the guys who are going to jump out and lead laps. This being a short race, only 150 laps, those dominator points will be gobbled up by those guys starting in those front, probably 1 to 4 spots, I feel like. So.
Okay, sounds like we got a lot of things to talk about this slate. Ryan, I'm going to throw it over to you. We already talked about, starting on the pole with this quick turnaround, but how important is track position on this slate here this weekend?
It is probably as important as it is any week. This track's incredibly hard to pass on, partly because it's very small. At a quarter mile in length, by the time you're out of a corner, you're getting into the next one. It's very hard to make moves. And we saw last year in this event that the best way to do it was to use your bumper and move someone. You can be over aggressive like Ty Dillon and eventually get yourself in trouble, or you can, do it efficiently and make moves. But passing is incredibly difficult. So getting a starting position towards the front in the main race is crucial. There's no live pit stops, so there's no way to make up positions on pit road or anything of that nature. So you're pretty much fighting the other drivers all race long to get as far up as you can. There will be some incidents, where if you can avoid them, you can gain track position a lot quicker through that. But going and battling your way through the field is going to be pretty difficult. So when it comes to dominators, which we'll probably dive into a little bit more, we're going to hammer those front 4 starters. They're already going to show that they're the fastest drivers, most likely from the heat races, and then they're starting up front. So they have a much more likely it's a lot more likely that they are the ones leading the laps, getting the fast laps, and really scoring and separating themselves from the rest of the drivers on the slate.
All right. Sounds good to me. Excited to dive into it. Let's look at this again. I've said it a few times already, this initial slate to the year, the first one we have. How has pricing changed? What is the look of the entry list? What is your initial reaction to pricing? We'll throw it over to you first, Andrew. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to keep in mind is, not all of the drivers who are showing up are going to take the green flag, Sunday night. So if you're building your lineup Saturday or even Sunday to a certain extent, just be aware that potentially on what drivers you're plugging into your lineup. Hopefully DraftKings will notify you saying, hey, this driver isn't taking place, but just be aware. I mean, it's really only an hour between the last chance qualifier and the main event on Sunday. So not everyone who's on the slate is going to participate. And then we saw pricing is actually pretty soft there. I think there's only Logano and Elliott who are up in that 10K range. So you can really play anyone that you want. I think to Ryan's point, I don't think pricing matters too much. I think it's more about looking at that starting lineup and really trying to nail who those potential lap leaders, who those dominators are going to be, and then trying to build your lineup around there. So I think, for me, I think there was a couple of drivers that stood out to me as like, oh, that driver looks a little underpriced. Like Kevin Harvick, for example, comes to mind for me. He seems very underpriced based off of his, how he did last year at these short flat tracks. But, it's a brand new season. So I think we kind of have to dive in and look at the data this weekend. But I'm not really too worried about salary this weekend. I'm more focused on track position and then playing that narrative out in my head of, okay, how are these drivers going to accumulate points for me so I can have a winning lineup come Sunday night.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm really
agree.
happy.
I completely agree with that. Sorry, I was jumping in. I was thinking about the Harvick thing last week that we were talking about. I was hoping Harvick would come into the year underpriced. So to see him where he's at now, it makes me happy. It gets me excited for the rest of the year.
That's good, man, because I'm about to pull up these salaries right here. I want to get everybody's thoughts on this, and let's start talking about these lineup constructions for this weekend here, because we do have ourselves a fine slate to break through right now. I'm going to pull them up right here, and there we go. Ryan, you were just talking about it, my friend. Let's get your thoughts on these pricings and what is a staple of your lineups this weekend for the first event of the year.
So the good news is, I messed around building some lineups, kind of seeing what they would look like, and for the most part, in your under 7K range, you're probably going to need to play a couple of those drivers. But there's good options like AJ Allmendinger stuck out automatically to me. Austin Dillon, who finished third in this race last year, stuck out as well. And essentially, once you throw those drivers into your lineups, you can pretty much play anyone else on the slate. And at that point, you're just trying to maximize laps led and fast laps, get those dominator points to get the best drivers possible. I think it's going to be pretty easy for the optimal lineup to have 6 guys that finish top 10 or if someone's a place differential play that you got to have from 27th to 12th or something. Yeah, you're going to be able to pretty much get whatever you need. You're not going to make sacrifices in your lineups for salary purposes. You're pretty much going to be able to afford what you want, which is honestly fun for me. I enjoyed that way. I think last year, I don't know if it was Jason or somebody put it out there that the winning lineup, the optimal lineup, had like 5,800 left over last year. And that's typically what we see when we have races that are 27 or 25 or 22 cars. We see that with the All-Star race or previous Busch clashes at Daytona, where the field's not as big, so that they have to do this with pricing. And as a result, we see lineups that don't use all the salary that leaves a couple of grand on the table, and that's how we can be different in a slate like this. Is it's a lot easier to leave some on the table and be a little bit different than what everyone else is going to do. So I love that it's like this. I'm excited for it. I think it kind of gives us more opportunity to separate ourselves and be a little bit different, which hopefully means you're not duplicating yourself or other people. You're able to take it down, solo or something like that. So I'm excited for it.
All right. Well, this is the question I've been waiting to ask for a few weeks now. I've done 3 videos already, and all I've heard from Jason and Ryan is that they disagree on everything. Let's put that to the test. Jason, what are your thoughts on this first slate? Do you see it similar to Ryan, or how are you attacking it to start the year?
I think we're probably a little different here. Like, I'm definitely attacking that 1 to 2 dominator approach, as like Ryan said. Like, I think there are going to end up with about 2 guys who are going to end up with the majority of the dominator points in this race. And I think you're going to have them. But I do think like position differential is going to play a big key this race. I mean, we saw last year we had six of the top 10 performances in DraftKings were all guys starting 10th or further back. And I know we had some guys have mechanical failures last year. We had some incidences on the track, but it wasn't like a really chaotic race. I mean, yeah, we had some mechanical failures, but I wouldn't put that as out of a realm of possibility as things happening this year. Getting those guys starting in that 12 to 13, 14 point range, and opportunity to pick up those position differential points that are huge on a slate where you're going to have the majority of the dominator points gobbled up by 2 guys. So those guys starting 5th, 6th, or 7th that finish in that 5th, 6th, or 7th range, they're going to score maximum like 42, 43 points. They're not going to have that upside to score past that 46, 48, 50, which is what you're going to need to hit in these GPPs. You're going to have 4 guys probably starting in that 10 to 17th range who are going to score probably 7 to 8 dominator position differential points. And you're going to need those guys in your lineup, in my opinion.
All right. Well, I'm happy to hear all that. And I'm going to ask you, Andrew, now. Do you agree with all Jason's saying there? And how much does the heat winners affect who you're targeting on DraftKings?
Yeah, so for me, I want to start my lineup with those heat race winners. I want to look at the 4 heat race winners and probably find my favorite 2 if I'm just building one lineup. You know, if you're building multiple lineups, maybe trying to get to different variations of them. But for me, I think I want to start with those heat race winners because I think they have the highest probability, the best chance of gobbling up all those dominator points that we were talking about. And then from there, I also probably want to attack probably, 3 to 4. I would call them place differential plays, but really I'm trying to find drivers who maybe finished 3rd in their heat race or maybe 4th in their heat race. You kind of start middle of the pack that I know have good speed. Maybe they had really good practice times on Saturday. They laid down a fast qualifying lap. Maybe something happened in their heat race. They got bumped out of the way and got past 4th position late in that race. And because of that, they're starting a little bit deeper in the field. So for me, I don't really want to focus too heavily on drivers at the very tail end of the field. I think it's more trying to find drivers in the middle that have the ability to move forward maybe 6, 7 spots and get those finishing points as well towards, maybe the top 5, the top 8. So I'm going to start with those lap leaders and then try to find maybe some lower owned plays or some drivers in the middle of the field who still offer place differential, but who also have the ability to finish towards the front of the field.
Yeah, that's a good point you made. It's not necessarily stack the back. If you're not stacking the back, you don't want those guys starting probably in that 24th, 27th range because those are the guys who that leader's going to catch the fastest. They're going to get trapped a lap down. They're more likely to get trapped a lap down. But I think what it does do, we got 4 extra cars in the field this year than we had last year. So it's going to allow those guys starting 21st, 22nd, a little bit of a cushion. They got a few more guys behind them. They might hang on the lead lap a little bit longer, and get and pass some cars before they get that first caution, So I think it sets up nicely this week.
All right. Well, this is the time of the video where I get selfish. I get happy.
You didn't ask Ryan. I thought we were going to see if he disagreed, right?
Oh, well, yeah, I know. But sometimes, Ryan is just not one I want to ask questions to, and I just like to skip over him. But this time, I'll ask him, what are your thoughts on what they said?
No, I agree to an extent. I think there's going to be some caveats, and there's always context with, NASCAR. I liked what Andrew said about someone maybe getting booted back and instead of finishing 2nd, finishing 4th or 5th in their heat race. Well, that same concept could happen to a driver who's maybe 4th or 3rd, gets booted out and has to qualify through the last chance qualifier. So they're starting even further back, but maybe with a car that should have finished 3rd or even 2nd in a heat race. So we have to pay attention to what happens in those heat races, see if someone has a top 10 speed-wise car who maybe starts 20th, 21st, 22nd. And I do agree with what Jason says. There is a slight buffer for those guys that maybe have a little bit more speed and win their last chance qualifier, and then we'll have a couple of slower drivers behind them. It'll be harder to get, caught a lap down. And then we have a halfway break. So after 75 laps, they're going to throw a caution, right? Guaranteed, regardless of whether there's any wrecks or anything. So there are scenarios where if there's a wreck 20 laps or 30 laps in or somewhere where nobody's trapped a lap down, and then it starts becoming a carnage-filled race in the second half, people really pushing it. And so while I agree we should focus on those guys 15th, 16th, 17th, a little bit more than guys starting 24th and 25th, simply from speed and then, potentially going a lap down in that process. But there's also the chance that this does get chaotic. It is still a short track. People are still going to have to move each other. So at some point we could see a couple of incidents that take out some drivers, and those drivers starting in the very back do kind of carnage their way to a really good score. So I'm probably be a little more open-minded about that, but they're right. I mean, based off of the one sample size, the one race we have, you're going to want the driver starting at the front that's going to lead. I mean, Tyler Reddick would have led almost every lap last year if he didn't have a mechanical failure. So I like single dominator lineups. I like 2 dominator lineups. And then I do like mixing and matching more of the place differential guys, being a little different in that range than everyone's going to be on the race leaders. I think the top 4 guys are going to be heavy. So trying to find different ways to attack place differential plays is probably the key to being different.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. What you said is not only attacking those plays, but also like finding those guys who everybody's going to be on. We've talked about how it is hard to pass. Like, it's not impossible. That's why we're targeting PlayStation, but it is hard to pass. Like, it is possible to see a guy like Chase Elliott, who was 61% owned last year, starting 15th to look like a slam dunk for PlayStation, who was moving through the field, had a good car, got to 7th, got spun out, had to make his way back up, made his ground up, and then fell back through the race and finished 12th, 11th. Like, he didn't crush your lineup, but like 61 for the field scored 39 points on him, which is like ranked like 13th or so. So maybe just avoiding those chalky place differential guys and getting on those guys like your Cole Custers or your Harrison Burton, those guys who came through at low ownership for you last year, or your Eric Jones at 6% last year. You're not going to get Jones at 6% this year.
Nope.
Austin Dillon 13% last year at started 10th. So that like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th range is going to be crucial for leverage this week.
All right. Well, I do feel bad for skipping over Ryan. So I'm going to ask him this next question from the chat. Shout out to everybody who's hanging out there right now. Ryan, what are your thoughts on what Matthew said? Is there a choose rule for this race? Wouldn't it be smart to target guys on the inside rather than starting on the outside? For example, number 3 over number 4.
I would assume there is. I haven't read that there isn't one. I'm pretty sure it's every track now, even super speedways and dirt races are going to have a choose rule. So there should be. I'm not as necessarily worried about that. If you look back last year, Reddick and Busch started 1-2. Kyle Busch obviously had the advantage early, but within 2 laps, Reddick was by him and taken off. So I'm not totally worried about that. Now, conceptually, the inside is going to have a slight advantage, but I think overall they're all going to kind of file in. I don't expect like a train of cars on the bottom to just run through and pass the guy that's restarting or that's starting third. I don't think we'll see that. And the race is long enough that a driver who has a good enough car can make that up. If I'm depending on them to dominate, I may favor a driver starting first or third a little bit more when I'm building lineups, but overall I'm not super concerned with it.
All right, good insight there. But now we can finally get to the part I've been waiting for, the part where I get happy, the part where I get selfish, and we talk about your overall thoughts, initial thoughts, and who you think is going to win the race, because that's what matters, right? Picking winners, right? No, I'm just kidding with you guys, but I'm looking forward to hear your initial thoughts on it. We're going to go around the room. What I am going to do first, though, is throw up these odds here, because sometimes odds do matter. Who you guys think is important to winning this matchup. I don't want that to affect your thoughts at all, but who do you guys think is going to be winning this race this weekend? Again, without knowing any of these trials happening earlier, but who do you guys think is going to win? Initial thoughts. We're going to start with you, the newcomer, Andrew. Who's your pick to win the race?
Yeah, so from a fan perspective and maybe even from a betting perspective, just looking at a lot of different metrics, I really like the Penske program, what they show up at these short flat tracks. I think a lot of people who maybe are new to NASCAR, who are looking at data from last year, maybe are just automatically going to hammer Joey Logano. But I'm going to take a different Penske driver. If I had to pick one driver in the field, it's going to be Ryan Blaney. I think he has a solid chance of getting into victory lane Sunday night. And then from an odds perspective, more of a long shot guy. I don't mind Chase Briscoe's odds. I don't know if I can't really see the screen there, but I think he was like plus 4,000, I think, earlier when the odds came out. So if I had to take a long shot, I'm probably going to go with Briscoe. But if I have to gun to my head, I'm probably going to pick Ryan Blaney as the race winner.
Plus 3,000. That is music to my ears. That is some good news for me there. And we also got another comment here. I'm going to ask this one to Jason. We have that the PL drivers last year finished 1, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 in their heats. And the top 5 PD guys finished 4, 5, 8, 6, and 7 in their heats. Does that play any difference in who do you pick as your winner? And on that same note, who are you picking as your winner this weekend?
No, I think that kind of sums up like around that range we were saying we're looking to target guys for PD. So it makes sense that those top PD guys are finishing in that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th range. So yeah, that makes sense, at least from the standpoint of where I was targeting in that like 10 to 16, 17th place starting position. But like I said, it depends on where guys start. But as far as me, like winner, like, yeah, I was right there with Andrew, man. I was hoping, I was right there with Ryan Blaney. Like, I haven't looked too much in the odds. This is probably a week that you don't want to probably make too many bets before practice, before qualifying, because we were pretty confident that winner's going to come from the top 4 spots. So might as well wait till we see some guys on the track and kind of know where these guys are. Guess where these guys are going to start on Sunday before you start making those bets. But yeah, I like Ryan Blaney too. Penske's top notch. Ryan Blaney is really good at Martinsville. He didn't show up here last year, so maybe people might be sleeping on him. But really, I really expect good things at at Ryan Blaney this week.
All right, and the question
said so.
Well, the question of the hour is: does Ryan agree? You can make it 3 for 3 here, Ryan?
No. So in all honesty, I was taking a shower about an hour ago, and I was thinking about this, and Ryan Blaney was the guy that was in my head. I was thinking Ryan Blaney basically for the exact same reasons that they came up with. Essentially that when you look back at last year, especially about the midway point at Gateway all the way through Phoenix, Penske was the dominant car on short flat tracks. They were annihilating the field. They were the best group. But that was, and it's going to sound weird, that was 2.5 months ago. And a lot is going to have changed over the, off season. These teams are going to spend a lot of time in the simulators, trying setups and trying to get better with this car, and I feel like we're going to see teams performing differently than we saw at the end of last year. I think we're going to see teams that have caught up on certain track types. And I'm very interested to see how some teams catch up in this event, especially not just in regards to what the race was last year, but what we saw at Phoenix, what we saw at Gateway, what we saw at Martinsville. The one that stuck out to me that in my head, once I started thinking about this process, was I trust Joe Gibbs Racing to get really good everywhere. And we started seeing it, this race last year, they were horrible. Kyle Busch looked decent, but Denny Hamlin ran like 20th. Like they weren't great. They didn't show a ton of speed, not like the Chevys did, not like Tyler Reddick did. Austin Dillon finishing third, Logano won it. I felt like the Gibbs team struggled early, and then throughout the year, Gateway, you started seeing them perform better. And at Martinsville, we saw Christopher Bell win. And I believe Christopher Bell is entering the peak of his career, or of his young career right now. And we talked about that last week. Year 3, 4 is when they really start taking off. And I think the team lines up with them. I think his confidence is going to be at all-time high. I liked his Martinsville performance. So I'm picking Christopher Bell to win the race. That's my outright pick. I don't love the odds. Obviously, you're not getting a great number compared to most of the field, but I do really like Christopher Bell. And I think Gibbs is going to show the whole a lot better than last year, and I think they're going to be tough to contend with.
It's hard to argue with Christopher Bell. Just going back to the Penske, with the Penske point, though, we'll say about Penske with short flat tracks is they've been good for years on short flat tracks, and no matter what cars they've been driving, right? And the other thing that has kind of been a theme the last few years that we've been seeing is like Toyota just not showing up fast to start the year. Like it seems like with Toyota, like once we get into those summer months and the tracks get slicker and you get in the heat, that's when they really find that grip and start putting in that string, like what you talked about when we hit halfway through the point of the season. The Toyota says, so does that. That's the only reason like I kind of pulled back on Christopher Bell, because I was wanting to say Christopher Bell this week too. But does that concern you? Like, is that in your head at all this week? Like wanting to see like Toyota's got to show up with it. Like to me, I got to maybe see them in practice and to see some speed, because if they show up slow again, like it could just be that whole like, man, maybe they just struggle out of the box for whatever reason.
So historically, I've always considered Toyota the team that had the most downforce. So aerodynamically, for the most part, maybe not last year or the previous year before that, but over the course of the last 15 years or so, I always felt Toyota had a better downforce package. And you saw that really take effect when it gets hot, when it gets slick, when they need more grip. I think that happened last year. Whether that's by happenstance or they just figured out mechanical grip on intermediates, maybe they just figured it out in general. But you're right. I do think that applies. Luckily, it's Southern California, so maybe it's going to be 85 degrees. Right. But on a quarter-mile track, a track like this, I don't think that matters at all. There's no, it's all mechanical grips, all setup based. So I'm hoping that they had the ability to make gains, to figure out their how to get the cars to rotate, which they've always been really, really good at as well. So I think they're going to make those gains. I'm not really concerned. What you're saying for when it comes to Cali and Vegas here in a couple weeks, yeah, I'm probably more interested in that. But this week it doesn't concern me at all.
All right. Well, again, that was me being a bit selfish, asking about who you guys think is going to win without really knowing where they're going to start. But, I'm greedy. I'm going to keep asking. And we're going to frame this in a way that makes it sound a bit better for me. But I want you guys to know who is the guy to look out for and who's like maybe a sleeper pick. You guys think maybe have a better line to win this race than the line entails. Again, prior to knowing where they're going to start this weekend. Andrew, we'll start with you. What's your thought on a good sleeper pick? And I know you already mentioned one of them in Chase Briscoe, I think it was.
I'll give you even a deeper one. So, one guy that I think he was in this race last year. I believe he was in a Rick Ware racing car, which was Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece comes from short, flat track racing. This is kind of his bread and butter, what he does. He's upgrading his equipment this year. He's taking over Cole Custer's machine for Stewart Haas Racing. I know he's more of a long shot. So, if you're looking for maybe a sleeper pick, a guy to kind of keep your eyes on, one guy that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on, especially looking at his practice time, seeing how he does in his heat races, seeing if he can make it into the main show is going to be Ryan Preece. I feel pretty confident with SHR and especially Ryan Preece's background to potentially get done.
All right, Jason, we'll throw it to you. Same question. What are your thoughts on any sleeper picks or anybody to keep your eye on out for this?
No, don't waste your money. Don't waste your money betting on the outrights anybody greater than probably 1,000 this week. I think we're going to I think we're going to know the winner is going to be. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be not be fun, but I wouldn't pick any long shots this week. This isn't a week where I think somebody might show up and surprise you to win this race. But I could be wrong.
His name is GordoGambles. He wants to gamble, man.
Austin Dillon. But I don't know. He finished third last. He finished third last year. He's a long shot. He's good at Martinsville, right? He's a guy who can come on late. He's good at saving tires, saving the car. We saw him have speed at the end of the race last year. Maybe if there was 20 more laps and another caution, he could have probably won last year. Austin Dillon. Is that better?
You know what? Don't think of it as a way of like you're telling me to bet on this. Take this as in, say a week from now when we're doing this video again, and you could be like, I picked that guy to win the fight. And we can put that clip up there. No one says I'm going to bet on it. Just take the credit for it. Take a shot. Who you think is going to be a long shot?
I got you.
All right. And Ryan will ask you that same question, but that same question with little asterisks here because we do have a question. No love for Austin Cindric. Is your long shot Austin Cindric this week?
Not a chance.
Okay.
So Cindric's fine. I just don't think Cindric's seasoned enough, to really contend for race wins against the elite. It's tough to win at this level. And that's why when I talked about Christopher Bell earlier, it's years 3 and 4. Austin Cindric has 1 year of cup racing. He still got into oval racing relatively late. And so he's still making gains as a driver. I don't think he's ready to necessarily contend for this type of win. This is not his bread and butter. This is not how he grew up. So no, I'm not really into Austin Cindric this week. My pick, I think, is kind of got a ridiculous number at plus 7,500, and that's AJ Allmendinger. I don't think Allmendinger is going to win this race by any means, but I think he should be in that 4,000 range like Ryan Preece. I think you're getting a really good number here with AJ Allmendinger, who has shown on this track type to be really, really strong. He was ninth in this race last year, I believe. So you got a decent finish in this event last year at a time when Kaulig was honestly not that fast overall. You looked at the early part of their season, they struggled pretty much everywhere. The second half of the year, though, we saw this program start to come together, including, really good runs at not just Watkins Glen and the Roval, but top fives at other tracks like Homestead, top 10s, the 7th at Bristol. That team just started to click and get really good runs, finished 12th in the season finale at Phoenix. So I just feel like the team and Allmendinger really started getting some momentum. The speed was there, and you're going to a track that he legitimately ran top 10 at last year. So I think he's a guy that could sneak his way into a really good heat finish, a really good starting position for the main race, stay out of trouble. And we know when it comes to outbreaking people, no one's better. And if he gets into it here late in the race where he's top 3, top 5, and he needs to make some moves, I think he can do it. So I like Allmendinger for that aspect, though. I think it really hits. Like Jason said, no, most likely our winner's coming from a top-tier team. But if I'm taking a shot on anybody, it's going to be AJ Allmendinger.
All right. Thank you guys for, being nice, caring to me as the degenerate here, learning all this stuff. So I appreciate that. But guys, we've reached 35 minutes. That's 10 minutes over what I wanted to, but I'm really enjoying talking about this slate here, and I look forward to it in the coming weeks as well. So as we get on to the, the tail end of the show and I start letting everybody know where they can find you guys, I really just want to say, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, because there will be more videos like this each and every week for this Cup Series. It should be a lot of fun. I look forward to learning more about it and talking about it each and every week. But let's close things out here, guys. Before we do, though, again, I know they're going to mention where they can find them, but check them out because they will be putting out even better content throughout the week. Again, this is just a preview. They got a bunch of content all over the place. So check them out there. Check out Daily Fan Racing. All that's in the description down below. But Andrew, we'll start with you. Tell everybody where they can find you. And once again, nice to meet you. And I look forward to doing some work with you.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. It was a lot of fun getting to talk NASCAR, and it's exciting, right? Because the season's back. So we really put content out in two places. It's YouTube and Twitter. So on Twitter, it's at FastCarsFM. Usually every morning of the race day, we'll upload a quick spreadsheet that just is summarized, one pager, basically saying, hey, these are the drivers we're high on. Here's why we're high on those drivers. Here's who we want to target. It's really easy to digest, and we'll only look at it for a couple minutes and put your lineup together. And then we also make picks videos on YouTube, which is at Fast Cars, Fast Money, where we kind of go a little bit more in depth, basically dive deeper into that spreadsheet and kind of give you some more thoughts and analysis there. So it's Twitter and YouTube for us.
I love it. Once again, nice to meet you and best of luck this weekend. Jason, no Cincinnati gear, so I'll go to you right away. Where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me, guys, RPS, Run Pure Sports, every week, obviously, before the race. I put out an article breaking down the slate, giving you my picks, giving you a core, giving you all the stats and data you need to make your decisions. I just put out a season preview for 2023, breaking down, all the offseason changes, drivers I like, ranking drivers, going through each track type, how to approach each track type through the season. I mean, it's like a novel and a nice, I'm really proud of it, laying out the strategy you're going to need for the 2023 season. So check that out. That's posted at Run Pure Sports for free. Should be my pinned tweet at DFS NASCAR on Twitter.
All right. And last but not least, guys, and Jason, Andrew, much love to you both. When I'm looking at the slate, when I'm going to my main man to talk me through this, it is going to be Ryan. So Ryan, tell me about where they can find you and your Daily Fan Racing gear there.
So first off, thank you, Andrew, for jumping on. Appreciate it. You killed it. I wasn't looking forward to talking about all the race information, like the heat races and going over all that. So you killed it. Thank you for handling that part. And, Jason, you got your Run Pure in there. I appreciate that. If they want to send me one of those Yetis, I will take it. It looks awesome. So they can send me one as well. But yeah, Fan Racing, we got so I challenge any site to put out more content than us this weekend. I challenge you. We got a full slate. We got a full breakdown. We got a strategy article coming from two different guys. They're going to write articles for us, podcasts, projections. It's all going to be there. We're going to have it all there at Daily Fan Racing. And it's going to be there each and every race. Xfinity trucks as well, F1 as well. We got everything covered all year long. And of course, me and you are going to tackle the podcast ourselves together. We'll have a little one-on-one time and talk some more racing behind the paywall with Daily Fan Racing.
All right. Well, I look forward to that. And once again, guys, it was a pleasure talking to you guys about this slate. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this, following all you guys on Twitter and all of your various information sites where I can go out there and become the best NASCAR DFS player of all time. Because, guys, this is a fresh slate. You guys are training me to become the best here. And I look forward to hearing from all you guys. Again, best of luck this weekend at the first slate of the year. And I look forward to hearing from all you guys next week for the second slate of the year, where hopefully we're talking about all the green we're in, all the good plays we did, and all of Jason out there calling these plus 5,000s, although he didn't even want to talk about them. So once again, guys, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody showing love on this video here, and I look forward to making ones in the future. Best luck this weekend, and let's make some money, guys. Peace.